All right, so Superman has his fortress of solitude, right?
Sure.
Well, did he ever do a temperature mapping validation to make sure that his temperature is uniform throughout the fortress? I mean, maybe when the sunlight hits a particular corner, he's going to lose some data crystals because it's gotten too warm to keep his data integrity. Yeah.
I don't know that much about Superman.
My brain goes to weird places.
Welcome to the IP Cafe. My name is Desmond. This is Alec. And then we have a really special guest today, Stephanie Brandford from Brayearst Validation Consulting. Long time in the not consulting industry, but in the the validation industry, chemical industry, the comic industry. I'm telling you, I'm never gonna give it up. Anyways. And does a ton of volunteering, is a BioBuzz ambassador?
Yes,
or
ambassador of Buzz.
Ambassador of Buzz, and then is also the communications committee chairperson at PDA capital area in Maryland and like DC, I think even Northern Virginia.
Yes.
So very excited to have you on here, Stephanie. We appreciate you taking the time to come into the cafe. We went with the term cafe, and I probably covered this before. We went with the term cafe because we wanted it like coffee house style, kind of like light conversation vibes,
Got my mug and everything going.
I actually have coffee for the first time in the podcast history in this cup.
No, you've had coffee before.
Nope. No, I haven't.
What?
That's a lie. That's a lie. I actually have coffee. No, you're right. I have. But this one's actually in a mug, so representing our co-working space that we have an office in. So yeah, thanks for hopping on. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me here today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, we could just start, diving into things and yapping and learn a little bit more. Validation. I'll be honest. I hear it all the time, just in my role, working with all these biotechs that are currently, trying to be FDA compliant or GMP or GLP compliant and, all of those things. And, we're kind of that IT company that gets people to the point of validation. And then we got to bring in folks like you to, help them get over to that next stage. So just give me a background. How did you end up in validation services? What drove that? And, you have a bachelor's of science in chemical engineering. What was the motivation there? How did you get to the point where you are now?
Sure, I can get started from that degree because that was actually earned before medical devices were required to have validation. So I started in traditional chemical manufacturing, doing statistical process analysis, doing compliance, except it was for the EPA, worrying about, our chemicals getting into the environment. It was only when I moved to Baltimore in 2000 that I moved to a medical device company. It was actually Cambrex at the time. It's currently Lonza out in Walkersville. Oh. And I started with them as a project engineer, but they saw that I had, let's put air quotes around, compliance mindset, pain in the butt. I understand. And they were the first ones to mention validation to me. And it was when I transitioned from them to Becton Dickinson that I then also brought in the statistical component because they hired me to be both a validation leader and their Six Sigma black belt for their facility. So that statistical process control, that compliance mindset kind of all blended together. And here I was in validation, a brand spanking new profession. And so while I was with BD, I, of course, progressed from being a solo practitioner, having a direct report, having one facility and then 3 facilities, and having a team of practitioners. And so that was kind of my progression over a couple of decades within BD until they decided to restructure and sort of made validation a side activity to quality. So if you no longer have a separate validation team, you no longer need a separate validation manager. And so that's where leaving there, I came up with Brayearst as a way to leverage all of these skills that I had come across while I was doing validation and wanting to do that with other companies. And so for those who don't understand what validation is, here's a way to think about it.
That's going to be my next question.
Yep. So, we're taking medication. Some of us might have medical devices. We often are going to the doctor's office getting diagnosed with things. So those diagnostic kits and materials, all of these things have a validation requirement from the FDA. And what that means is when the product itself was created, they had to prove that that product was safe and effective. But they don't want to make, just one or two in their kitchen. They want to make thousands, millions of units. Well, when you go to that scale of manufacturing, you're bringing in industrial equipment. And that equipment comes with its own set of regulations. And that's where validation comes in. And so there's all different validation types, process validation, proving it can make good products. Cleaning validation, making sure if you make one product and then the next one, you're not going to carry over residue that interferes. The one that I'm sure is going to make you quake, software validation, making sure that software is functional. Yes, that the records it comes up with are all accurate. And then there's also test method validation, where you're proving when you're testing a sample from the process, it's going to pass a good sample and fail a bad sample. You also have contamination control measures because, we filthy humans, we are in these workplaces and you don't want the contamination from us getting into the product. So you'll have contamination control related validation. So all of that's validation work, and it's just fascinating to do.
It is. And sorry, Alec.
No, you're good.
Because you said something on the chemical contamination. I heard a story not so long ago, but it was during like COVID, where a company had, they were doing a run of maybe a COVID vaccine that had not been approved yet, or they were doing something. It may have been approved. And I'm not going to drop the name because I would love to work with this company, but they were having some issues. They were having some issues on, not issues, but basically what they did is somebody came in late at night during a run when they were, putting samples in and doing their thing. And somebody came in to the building, and it was a janitor, and they were just like there to do their job. And they had like just cleaned some stuff out, and they just like walked into this room that was a clean room haphazardly and closed the door and just walked through it. Well, it was on camera and everybody saw it, and they failed the FDA validation because all of those samples, thousands of those samples had been contaminated, and they didn't catch it until the morning. And it's crazy that the things that you guys do. I mean, I know I've had to do like change request forms for validation things and all of that. And I'm like, man, this sucks. But then you go back to it and you look in the mirror and you're like, wow, thank God there are people like Stephanie that actually go back and check and make sure that I'm not putting, whatever bad, harmful thing into my body that could hurt me. Some people hate it. And believe me, like, validation drives me up a tree especially when we're talking about software validation.
We're the bad guy. Absolutely. Because we're at the end of the project. So, exactly. All the design and installation and all that other early stuff comes along. And then here's the big V at the end. And it's like, why didn't you validate it yesterday? And it's like, well, because you didn't have it plugged in yet. I've literally had that conversation with an engineer.
Are you serious?
I have. Yeah. So it's so bad. It's so bad. You have to kind of accept it. So a gentleman who worked for me for over 12 years, he and I were at the holiday party together. And you know how they had the photo booth and you had the props? Yeah. Well, we decided that I would take a picture with the Darth Vader mask on and he had a Stormtrooper mask on, because you sometimes just have to accept you're the bad guy.
Oh my gosh.
Is this how the whole pin thing or that you wear?
Oh, no, that was all before. That's all while I was still corporate.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest. I used to work in talent acquisition for a couple of CROs.
Did you?
And this guy.
Did you play baseball too?
I wasn't going to bring it up this time. Anyways, I ruined my train of thought. Anyways, I used to do talent acquisition.
For
a CRO in Rockville. And I remember recruiting for their quality department. And you'd go to the other members of the team and be like, all right, well, I think this person would be a good fit for the quality department. And they're like, are they mean enough to be quality people? I'm like, what are you talking about? Mean? They're not mean. They're just like doing their jobs. And they're like, no, they got to have an edge to them. They got to be able to tell people that they're doing something wrong. I guess. And it's funny because every quality person, any validation person that I've ever met, been the sweetest human beings on earth. But, they got to have an edge to them. And you got to be able to come back, go to people and say, hey, yeah, I didn't do it yesterday, like you said, because it wasn't plugged in. Like, I'm sorry. I can't help you. I'm sorry.
I literally had to be in the meeting with pictures, sliding them across the table going, this is how the wires were looking yesterday. It wasn't plugged in.
Yeah. Validation is a complex, at least it feels complex to me to understand. And I don't think I'll probably ever understand. Hopefully after this conversation, I'll understand it a little bit more. But, how do, I guess, kind of rolling into the next bit, with all of these stories and all of these things around, what it takes to do validation, what it is, like, how do life science companies kind of like make sure their products are made correctly? When we're talking about that company that I brought up that had somebody rolling through the site, with trash bags and whatever, how do we ensure that that's, safe? How do we make sure that that's correct and done the right way?
Yeah, a lot of it is tied to having a structured approach to validation. There's guidance documents, available, but they really tell you the what needs to be done, and it doesn't give you a real good pathway on just how to do it. How do you accomplish this? So that was something that I actually thought about when I was first separated from my employer, because, I can't go around training people on how they do validation. That's not what I would do.
Yeah.
So I actually developed my own structure that I call CAGES. So claims, approach, gathering evidence, and summary. And so the idea is you need to be clear on your claims first. Don't ask me to validate something when you don't know what good and bad is. And that is a challenge that you'll see come across where they're like, okay, the equipment is here, validate it. It's like, okay, what does good and bad look like coming off of this? So claims is definitely a thing you need to do first. And then approach is about how are you going to prove the good and bad that you're now claiming. So statistics, tend to play into this arena. If you have a numerical result, you've got capability and performance indices. And I actually have a video about that because it's complicated. With pass-fail, you've got, okay, I'm about to get nerdy. The Six Sigma person's getting nerdy. So there's binomial distribution. There's, all these different statistical methodologies with pass-fail criteria. But all of that needs to be fleshed out first, because what the FDA wants is that you have made a justification that, okay, this characteristic is a high risk, so we're going to prove it to this level of scrutiny. But this other characteristic, it's really minor. It doesn't have that big of an impact, and so we're only going to test it to this criteria. That needs to be proven, defined first before you go into it, because then gathering evidence is now the phase where, okay, here's the instructions and the data sheets on collecting the data. We're going to collect it and we're going to analyze it.
So you're doing essentially like risk assessments and all
Yeah.
on every component during the validation.
Right, because you want to define your approach based on the risks that are present for that product.
And then to validate it and verify it's validated, you're basically just saying, well, this risk wasn't severe enough that we need to worry about.
Yeah, because there's some risks that are a true safety or health hazard about the products, but there are some things that might be more cosmetic and they'll cause maybe a market rejection, but not necessarily be bad. And actually, that was the subject of my first video, where you think about severity as a scale where you've got things that are truly hazardous. It could hurt someone. You've got some things that maybe they're just performance. Maybe they're a little bit less effective, but they would still do something. And then things that, okay, maybe the customer would look at it and go, oh no, but if they actually took it, it would still work. And so you don't want to validate all of those types of characteristics to the same criteria, because it's really, you're either not stringent enough if you do something severe to a minor level, or you're just overload if it's something minor, and you're testing it to severe criteria. So that's where that helps. And then once you do all of that work, you got to put in a nice summary package because that auditor is going to come in and they don't want to mind read. They want to see it, put it in front of them, let them flip through it, let them ask you questions. And so having a structure they can understand is important as well, because the worst thing is if you go through all this work and they're like, okay, this is all looks foreign to me, finding.
So let me ask you this, like when you're coming into the place to validate something, are you being told what you're validating and what you're looking for initially, or is somebody saying, this is what I want you to look for?
So there's different approaches that they could possibly take. So if they just have the equipment and they know the product they want to make, I can start with them through the claims process, figure out what are they claiming about the process in terms of the product, what settings they're going to use, what documents they have those settings in, because that can be important in terms of carrying forward. Getting all of that understood up front, is definitely helpful for then going into the subsequent steps. And then some companies may already understand how they want to validate in terms of like what samples, what testing, what they want to do. Others, they may just know they have a product and they know how to test the product for release, but they don't necessarily know how they would test a population of samples in order to qualify, an overall process validation. So that's some of what I could talk them through as well.
Gotcha. So, I used to remember, and I'm going back to the summarization package because I remember this when I was in the CRO space. We used to have, it was the FDA. FDA used to come through, and we were a preclinical CRO, so there was some animal models in there, and the FDA would come through, and we would it would be weird because we didn't have any validated things, but I just remember those sort of that summary package you had to make. Everybody would freak out and like, oh my God, we have an FDA audit. Like, we've got to be so prepared. We got to write all of this down, and we got to do all of this. And at the time, I was young and stupid, and I didn't know, I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't understand why everybody was freaking out. But now, once you started talking about they have to be able to find things quickly, easily. They want to be able to go through it, and they want to get out of there, and they want to let you do. Everybody I know a lot of folks see the FDA as oh my God, man, this is bad. They're coming here. This is horrible. When, they really just want to let you work. They just want to make sure. I'm sorry. This is a not explicit podcast. I almost cussed.
You can.
They want to make sure. They want to make sure things are running effectively and they're not going to kill you. And that's the CRO space is different. They want to make sure that things aren't being released out into the atmosphere or into the world that could actually get someone sick, or they also want to make sure that practices are safe and whatnot for animals and things of that nature. So anyways, what happens if a company doesn't validate anything and they just keep things moving? What happens to that organization? Obviously they're going to fall under scrutiny, but what happens if they don't do it?
Yeah, that is a very bad scenario to fall into. I am actually on the trail of a company where I found the company name in a database.
Okay.
And that was about it. And I was like, well, it was a life science company. They were selling medications. I mean, what was the problem? And then when I did the Google search and I see this FDA warning letter, I'm like, oh, they fell afoul of the FDA. How unfortunate.
Oh, my goodness.
So I'm actually going to dig into that one a bit deeper because I'm not 100% sure, point A, point B are connected, but I just find it highly suspicious that the only thing I could find was they existed in this company database and then there's this FDA warning letter. I'm like, where'd they go? So that's kind of worst case scenario. But short of that, the other things that can happen is you can get a warning letter and then still decide you're going to try and do business. I'm actually, I've got a video ready to go about a finding where a company was qualifying a cleaning machine. And they fell into, I guess, something that we even debated when I was with my old employer is that, well, it's a piece of equipment, so should it be process validation? But it's doing residue removal, so shouldn't it be cleaning validation? And so this company chose the process validation, and I'm reading all these FDA findings like, oh, that's because it really should have been a cleaning validation. You're doing residue removal. You weren't doing manufacturing with that equipment. And so that's what my video topic's going to be on. So they're going to have to now hustle and figure out, okay, we need to validate it the way that the FDA expects you to, which is more of a cleaning validation approach.
Where are you posting these videos?
I've got, so the first two I mentioned are on my YouTube, so I'm hoping we can somehow connect.
Yeah, we can plug that in
Plug
here.
it in there.
Yep. And,
I didn't know, because like, I mean, you're like a LinkedIn star always going live as it is. I know we're diving off here, but I didn't know if this was like a LinkedIn video or YouTube. But we'll link your YouTube channol.
Well,
Yeah,
we also need
appreciate
to. Stephanie, didn't you help Alec and I when we went live?
She
in,
did.
Nashville. We were in Nashville.
Yeah, when I asked you how to do the
oh,
the restream thing, like
okay.
me and him were trying to go live, and I was like, I couldn't get it to work. And I was like, what do you use?
He's a tech guy. Couldn't figure it out. I'm kidding. Calm down.
I had on my cowboy hat that day, a different role.
Oh, jeez.
So actually,
anyway,
to confess, I actually learned that through BioBuzz.
Okay, well, there we go.
Yeah, because they have an initiative where their ambassadors of Buzz can take over the page for their area.
Yeah.
And I did a BioBuzz takeover one week, and so I was live streaming from every place I could think of, and I was like, "Oh, this is fun! I should do this going forward."
Desmond should do North Carolina one.
I have to talk to Chris and Kat about that because I remember being approached by it, and then it's always so busy. It's hard to make that happen all the time. But yeah, I think we want to do something here in North Carolina. Maybe I got some ideas. Stephanie, you should come down to North Carolina. Come see everything.
Well, I'll have to warn you, I do come up with wacky things. So you looked at my background, so you saw what I do with my charity time. So with BioBuzz, what I did when I did their takeover was I used comic book characters as examples of validation. So
Really?
like
Okay,
Superman.
I want to know an example.
Yeah,
All right, so Superman has his Fortress of Solitude, right?
Sure.
Well, did he ever do a temperature mapping validation to make sure that his temperature is uniform throughout the fortress? I mean, maybe when the sunlight hits a particular corner, he's going to lose some data crystals because it's gotten too warm to keep his data integrity. Yeah.
I don't know that much about Superman.
My brain goes to weird places.
Okay, so you're a DC fan then?
No, it's just he was the most. So I tried to stick with the most prominent ones.
Okay.
Like I used a Spider-Man one for process validation. So he's got these dispensers on his wrist, right?
Yeah.
He needs to know exactly what quantity is coming out of those.
Depends on the Spider-Man.
2 out of 3. 2 out of 3.
On the spider.
2 out of 3.
Okay, fine, fair enough. I was about to say not the Spider-Man I grew up.
Oh my goodness.
But if it doesn't dispense enough, well, he's going to be falling from a very tall height, isn't he?
Yeah. Exactly.
So did he ever do a process validation to know that the dispense quantity is accurate time and time again? See?
Probably
Isn't it
not.
weird?
I mean, in some of them, he did a lot of testing.
True, but I want to see his protocols. I want it in
I got
writing.
a validated process to getting things done.
Exactly.
By the way, the Spider-Man that I grew up with, Desmond,
things.
was a cartoon character. So
What did you say?
I said the Spider-Man I grew up with was a cartoon character one before Tobey Maguire.
I had Tobey Maguire. I even had a little alarm clock that sang the song. I'm not gonna sing it, but hey, you can include it in here if you'd like.
That song was from the cartoon, though.
Yeah.
We had it first. See, now I'm gonna have you guys nerding out.
So
Listen, I was never a comic guy, but I loved all the Marvel movies, like everybody in the world. Like I watched all 31 of them that came out in order.
So John and I had a call the other night for 2 hours talking about it because they released the new Daredevil
Yeah, that trailer came out.
trailer, which looks awesome.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to figure out how I could work him in if I do another takeover.
We are way off.
we're not though. We're not. See,
I worked
we're helping.
validation
You're
into
killing
this.
it, by the way.
We're helping her figure out a way.
Back in and like connecting it.
Well, I've already warned Chris that if he gives me another week to do a takeover, I'm going to try and figure out how to work in either Star Wars or Star Trek, one of the two.
Please work in. I will come to Maryland to work in Star Wars with you. Please. Literally, I am a Star Wars nerd. I've been a Star Wars person since I was a child. I will.
Yeah, because you're probably like 3 when like Phantom Menace came out or something. That's like all you knew.
Born in '97, so Phantom Menace was out in '99. So yeah, you're close.
All right.
Yeah, didn't think I knew that, did you? Yeah.
I remember seeing that in like Randallstown Theater, and it was like such a hot day, and the air conditioning was barely working in the theater.
So I'll admit, and then we'll get back to what we were talking about. But
yeah, I got an important question to come back.
We're gonna lose subscribers from this. I guarantee it. The best Star Wars movies, 1, 2, and 3. Phantom Menace.
We need some more subscribers to lose to that first. Desmond. Like that.
I don't care what anyone says. They're better than the middle ones. I'm sorry. I think the CGI looks better. The CGI in the 1, 2, and 3 were better than the ones that were in like 5, 6, and 7 or whatever however many more they've made so far. That's hot take, my opinion. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
I think
Alec, ask your question.
I think
Stephanie's like, that's not.
I'm going to say.
No,
Like
I have a fan theory that I'm trying very hard not to share.
I think that the original ones, for what they were working with, were better. Like some of the ones in like the early 2000s and all were pretty corny. But
yeah, well, not everybody can have taste. So
I'm a Star Trek fan, so whatever.
Still, not everybody can have taste.
Next generation.
Anyways.
Deep Space Nine.
I mean, we have gotten way. Ask your question, Alec.
No, she had something she wanted to go with first, so you go ahead and then I'll ask my question.
We
can cut it if you don't like it.
Oh, okay. So, did you guys see the Obi-Wan series?
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So the third sister,
Okay. Yes.
I believe she had twins, and those twins are Finn and Janna.
Really?
There's no basis for this theory. It's just my little pet theory. And that the timeline works.
I don't know what you're even talking
We can talk
about.
about it. Finn is in.
He's in
I can't remember now. The newer ones, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
If you saw episode 9,
Yeah.
so Finn met his twin sister, Janna,
Yes. Okay.
and they're
So,
the
yeah.
children of the third sister.
That could be good. What if that comes out? Aren't they working on new ones now?
They are, but I don't think they're going to touch on that at all. So I get to just live
Maybe
with my
you
little
should.
theory
Maybe you
in my
should go to
head.
Lucas or Disney or whoever owns the rights to that now, and just say, "Hey, by the way, you know, what would be a good layer into that
Yes,
story."
'cause someone who trained in both the light and the dark, and you stole her children from her, I think that
Yes.
would be the vengeance.
So good, so good. We can cut. We can
We'll
put
edit this
at
and
like
mail
the
it
end
to
of it
him.
to talk about like Star Wars. We can like do like a little connect and be like, "Hey, go to the end of this and watch what we talk where we talk about Stephanie's fan theories," because I'm with it all the way.
You just go ahead and we'll just send it and be like, here's how it needs to be. Like, this is how the plot needs to go now.
Jeez. All right. We gotta get back
Okay,
to
so
validation.
we're back to business.
Yeah, so
We're hyper focused.
to come back around, because I want to hit on this because this is something I feel like that we run into a lot. What are some of the common misconceptions with validation?
So I think because it's such a young profession, and even my referring to it as a profession might hit some folks wrong, it's can be seen as just an addendum to having product knowledge or as an addendum to having equipment knowledge. And while, I don't want to, talk down everyone who's doing validation and have those in their background, the fact is that chemical engineers have an unusual position among the engineering disciplines because for instance, mechanical engineers design mechanical objects, and
Yeah, that's
civil
what I went to school
engineers.
for.
Okay, there you go. And civil engineers, there's the constructs of society, like, bridges and what have you. Chemical engineers, we're not trained to make the chemical. We're trained to make the process. Process thinking is what chemical engineering is all about. And that is also what validation is all about.
Okay.
But again, it's such a young profession. That association doesn't seem to be a common perception. I've actually been in a phone call with someone who had a chemical engineering degree, and she described people questioning, why would chemical engineers be in life sciences? And I'm like, because you have manufacturing processes. And we're process trained. Process is what chemical engineers are trained to work on, as opposed to the product itself.
I never thought of that and put that all together.
Shocker.
Did you?
Hell no. Are you kidding me?
So, I mean, I want to dive into that even further, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because, we come across a lot of times, we're working in these environments that are considered validated.
Mm-hmm.
And people are saying they're validated, but sometimes just an IQ/OQ is done on a system or a PQ.
So that is because there's different guidance by industry. And that's actually something else that I disagree with and am on a quest to change. I know, I've got so much on my plate. So I worked in medical device manufacturing, but we manufactured cell culture media that we sold to pharmaceutical companies and biologics companies. So what would happen was once or twice a month, I had a customer auditor coming in, and quite often they would be challenging me on validation approaches. And I had to describe what medical device requires versus what pharmaceuticals requires. But over that 20 years of being questioned once or twice a month over and over again, I got to see that there is actually significant overlap between the two, and that validation really doesn't need to be thought of in as strict an industry definition as the product itself. And the way I kind of describe that is, you have a manufacturing process. It, has some sort of reactor or vessel. You get uniformity, and then you treat it after uniformity. You're filtering it, or you're doing a sterilization step, or doing something to, change it in between. And then ultimately it's going to get to some equipment that's putting it in its final configuration. It's putting it in a bottle, putting it in a capsule, putting it, in a kit. And then that gets labeled with important information like expiration date. Those are the type of thing your software is going to keep track of. And then it goes for final packaging. So that whole process I just described, if that final product is going to get ingested by a human, they're going to call it a drug. If that final chemical compound is going to go into a test kit, they're going to call it a medical device. But when it comes to validation, all those steps in between, it doesn't matter if someone's going to eat it or if it's going to be used to test their sample. That validation still needs to prove uniformity, still needs to prove your capability, still needs to prove your software. That thinking is not what I've seen as I've talked to people about validation. I oftentimes get asked which industry, and that's where I kind of go on my spiel of it doesn't matter. You still are a manufacturing process.
So IQ/OQ PQ does not mean that a system is validated, though.
So IQ/OQ PQ is how it was defined in medical device guidance documents. But IQ/OQ PQ works best when you are doing unit manufacturing. Pharmaceutical companies do unit manufacturing. They're doing pills, they're doing bottles, they're doing units. So to me, they could also do IQ/OQ PQ where there's unit manufacturing. And on the flip side, in pharmaceuticals, they do IQ and PPQ, is it process performance qualification? So PPQ applies worst case settings over a full production lot. That configuration works best when you're doing kind of the uniformity, the bulk manufacturing. It's also a structure that cleaning validation kind of adopts as well. That can apply in a medical device setting too, because they're blending too. They're cleaning too. So the fact that IQ-PPQ gets defined as pharmaceutical and IQ-OQPQ gets defined as medical device kind of does a disservice to validation, because it really shouldn't be the industry so much as the technology. That when you're doing blending, IQ-PPQ, when you're doing unit ops, IQ-OQPQ. So that's just my opinion. It's definitely not
Honestly,
one that's been broadly adopted as yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, honestly, we feel the similar, because we'll work with a med device company, and medical devices, anything that goes into a human body has different, this is somewhat related, so bear with me on this. They have different cybersecurity requirements than an organization that is just producing some sort of therapeutic or gene therapy, anything like that. So it's different, but at the end of the day, cybersecurity is cybersecurity, and if you aren't keeping things safe, it doesn't matter what you make, where you make it, how you make it, or whatever it is. Like can you keep it safe or not? And that's kind of the thought, that we like to adopt and where we go with this. So I guess with that and, with how you feel and, about like the difference in industry and whatnot, how does Brayearst or yourself help companies meet that standard? I know you're not going to do it the way that you like. It might not be perfect, but how do you help them get to meet like FDA requirements?
Yeah, the big thing is really meeting them where they are. So if you have a company that maybe has done validation work, but it's been called into question, whether officially or just internally, I can come in and do a validation spot check and say, okay, yes, you've kind of met these aspects, but there are some other considerations for this type of validation that you may want to cover, before you're putting this in front of an auditor. Versus kind of on the other end of the spectrum, someone who's got their product and they're ready to start making it, whether they're making it for clinical trials. And so they just need to have a process that's reliable, and they need to know it well enough that when they want to take it to a CDMO, they know the risks that are inherent in that manufacturing, and they can, highlight to their CDMO that you need to do this, because we know that these are risks for our product. And then kind of in between those two steps, maybe you have someone who's going to scale their own. They've, maybe done it benchtop and they want to scale to a smaller facility, like a set of suites on their own. I can help them then to validate moving into that suite of manufacturing, whether it's process, cleaning, method, software, whatever it is they're going to do. So there's all these different levels. And then on top of all of that, I actually had a conversation with a workforce development person where because government grants are very early on for these developers, they're not dealing with manufacturing at all. But she thought that training on the topic might still be helpful for them, even though they're not doing it today. It's something that they should be aware of so that they know, if they grow, that they need to be concerned with how well can you validate the different aspects of the process. So training comes in kind of even earlier on than having a manufacturing process.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm in total alignment with that, because I mean, when we talk about IT, our big thing is have things set up right the first time. Be prepared. Know what you need. Know like what it's going to take for you to get from seed to manufacturer commercial, and what the needs are from a technical standpoint, from an information standpoint, from a data standpoint. And validation goes right. It kind of works directly with that. I mean, we talked about software validation earlier, but it's like we talk about like smaller. We work with a lot of smaller companies, as I think you work with a lot of smaller organizations as well. Training is huge. We want to make sure that they're ready to go do it right the first time, so you don't have to fix all of the mistakes that you make 2-3 years down the road.
Yep.
And validation is the same way. I can only imagine all of the therapeutics that we had probably missed out on as a society that just didn't make it through it because they couldn't validate the process that they were working on, or they couldn't validate software or something like that. and it stopped them from being able to get to the point where they were actually putting it into humans. And I think if they had the ability to do it, if they had the ability to be trained on how to validate processes earlier, they could have avoided any hiccups later down the road.
Right.
And we like to do the same thing on the IT side. Like, the way we put it is we like to help companies get all the way to the point where validation starts, and then we bring you in to help validate their processes, software as well. So it's very interesting, and I can totally relate, especially here in InfoPathways. Like, let's do it right from the beginning. Let's train, make sure we're ready, so when we do get to the point of things actually big happening, manufacturing starts happening, you're ready, and you don't have to go back and be like fixing it later down the road. So for sure.
Even like
yeah, go ahead.
Even to the point of making sure that everything that we have in place is a part of that validation aspect. So it's not, it's all captured there. There's been so many times that we try and stress to be involved from the beginning, so we don't end up coming behind something like that. And it's really hard when you have to come behind and do stuff, which brings up another question I have for you, but I don't want to So, in the aspect where you have to come behind situations, sometimes it happens, things change. So can you talk a little bit about, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. What are your thoughts on change control processes?
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah, that's fine. So it was a big part of my corporate life, dealing with change control. So I guess since 2014, I had 3 facilities that were under me. So I was managing changes in these 3 different areas that frankly didn't care about each other. Their project was important, not that one in that other place. So
everybody's more important than everybody.
Exactly.
That's what I've learned.
And so a lot of the judgments would have to be, okay, I know I have a limited team. They're not going to clone anybody for me. Let's really make some clear lines of demarcation of when this change is occurring. Is there a point where we can make an engineering rationale that, okay, if we prove up to this point is comparable, then the rest of it is going to still fall under the existing validation. Or if we really don't think that it will affect the final product in the way you could theorize in, worst case scenario dreams, let's just prove that, yes, our controls will keep it from going to those crazy extremes. So you're not necessarily proving outcome, but proving just the controls are there, that you're not going to get to the crazy extreme when you make the change. So that type of judgment call is something that I believe very much relied on my having this chemical engineering background, because I could make those judgment calls. And also, added bonus, I also had computer aided design was my minor.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
So, so programmable and software and databases. So all of that was the part. I could rationalize that part too. And so that was, a lot of managing resources, risks. How do you handle the changes that come along? And because they could come along from anywhere. That was another part. So not only did the plants not care about each other, but when the purchasing person says, oh, the supplier is going to change this raw material, or the engineer wants to make this improvement to the process, and operations doesn't think it should work that way. They need to change it to make it work better for the operator. Those 3 different sources, and they're 3 of many, of changes, they also don't care about each other. They think their change is the critical one. So juggling that as well, when you have all those different stakeholders, is part of it too.
That's something we deal with a lot, because anything that's software related and stuff, the way that Microsoft has pushed things with the operating systems and all, it's out of our control. Yeah. And no matter how much we try to control it and minimize that risk, somehow they still have a master switch in the back, and they can go in and make changes and update and push stuff. And That's just so, it's so hard to try and mitigate that.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the IT department at my old employer, when it came to manufacturing computers, they had to be connected because the batch data was flowing, to and from
Mm-hmm.
client to server, but they had to have a strict control on the environment it was operating in so that wouldn't be recognized by Microsoft as something they would just push, a change onto. So yeah.
It's a story of our lives. I'm dealing with that today. Alec deals with it just about every day, where
That's why my hair is
we want to
turning
make sure
gray.
we want to make sure information is being collected, that data is being collected, but we also want to make sure that they're not getting unnecessary patches that could shut down, and then you have to restart the run, and you have to then do a change control, and you have to it's just so much extra stuff.
And the thing for us
that
too,
happens.
Anything, because we have people that want to save stuff in locations that are cloud-based and accessible, so it needs to be able to touch the internet. Well, when it's touching the internet, you've got two things that come into play. One, okay, we need to make sure that system is protected from anything.
Yep.
And two, now Microsoft's able to see that out there, and
Yeah.
Microsoft can be like, "Oh, emergency patch, here you go," and we're just like, but it's like Desmond said, I feel like it's a constant battle for us, and in particular on the software side, the manufacturers and all are incredibly behind the ball on the whole side of staying up with the operating systems.
Yes.
To the point that, okay, we like for us, and for instance, like, and this ties in too, because like if a system's validated to run on Windows 10, well, we're saying Windows 10 is end of life in October. So now that whole process needs to change on that side.
Yeah.
And be upgraded for security reasons or whatnot, or the process of how that data is being accessed and being checked is going to have to change, because it's going to have to go to like a closed environment, so it's not a security risk.
Yeah, and even in addition to the operating system changes now, because I worked for the manufacturer as opposed to the software suppliers, we would get notified of version upgrades. And I had this one, okay, so I won't name any names, but we only used maybe a third of the functionality of the software. But regulated environment, you're going to version change. I need to know what you're changing and figure out if it's going to affect our little piece of it. And they sent me this god awful ugly PDF, like 70 something pages with all this functional terminology. And I'm like, oh my goodness, could anyone put this in English for me, please? So, I mean, ultimately, it just trying to figure out, okay, is the RBX protocol something that's in my 1/3? No, okay, off. It's like you just
don't need it.
Yeah, don't even need to deal with that. So yeah, software, it can be a sticky wicket. It's painful.
It is, but necessary. I mean, and that's why we like to say, like, we want to help quality control as much as possible, because like if we can ensure, if we're giving you guys proper updates of when we know something might be EOL or end of life, or a new update is coming, and we can tell that validation team, that quality team, hey, by the way, Windows 10 EOL October, just so you're ready, be prepared. And that's kind of like, we like to keep up on that. It wouldn't matter for some of these like other smaller, not smaller companies, but some of the like regular or an insurance company or whatever that doesn't have those sorts of requirements or regulatory compliance things that they have to worry about. Windows 10, my computer only has Windows 10, I'll just buy a new laptop. Oh well, we'll just keep it moving. You can't do that when you got a $15 million piece of lab equipment and just say, oh well, I guess I can go buy a new one. Like, it's a lot of money, and it's difficult. So man, a lot of things. But I want to go. I want to. I want to go back to like the smaller companies because that's like where our pocket is, right? Like at InfoPathways, we like to work with these smaller organizations. I imagine you want to work with some of these smaller organizations that are just trying to, they need help on the validation side. So I guess, why is validation such a big deal for smaller organizations? Like, why does it matter so much for them? Not that it doesn't matter for larger organizations, but why is it such a big deal to get it right with those smaller organizations?
I think why it's so risky for the smaller businesses and why I really want to help them with the experience I have is that they don't have that track record of, decades of we've been making these products for so and so long, like my former employers. I used to say, the people who created those products, they're no longer with us. They're, decades ago. But, that history is something that the larger companies can use as credibility. If they do something a bit wrong and the FDA comes in and questions them, they can go back to, oh, well, we have all of these systems and we'll do this, that, and the other. When you're a smaller company, there's not as much room for error because,
Yeah.
if the FDA comes in and they cite something that's going to be costly to fix, maybe that's why that one company that I'm still need to investigate, went out of business because it was just too costly to fix this and, let's just do away with it. And so really helping them to build the knowledge of their processes, build that credibility that, yes, we have considered the risks and this is why we took this strategy. This helps that when they're then audited by the FDA knows that, okay, yes, they did take into considerations things specific to the manufacturing process, not just the things that are product related.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not against big pharma in any way whatsoever, but they do have they have these like really large pipelines where they don't have just one thing that they might be working on, but they got like 30 different therapeutics or drugs or whatever they're working on. And oh well, if product A doesn't meet or it didn't get validated or it doesn't meet regulatory I'm blanking out now requirements, then we'll just move C, D, and B down the process pipeline and whatever, and we'll just regroup on A. These smaller organizations, they got 1-2 platforms that they might have, and that is their lifeline. They're holding on to that thing, protecting it. They want to get it. If this doesn't work, then we're probably going to sell or we're going to go out of business. And I can appreciate what you do as far as the beginning of it and like training them on validation, but then that later down the road when they are actually producing something or they are getting to the point to do that, they're actually taking it into account how valuable validating each system is, and they're not just at the point where they're like, oh, this didn't work, well, now we're out of business, or now we got to struggle, we got to lay off 50 people to be able to pay for our mistake. It's I can appreciate doing that, and it's a relation to IT. It is a lot of money if a company accidentally, like we're talking about cybersecurity, but it's a lot of money if somebody accidentally sends $100,000 to what they think is a CRO, but it's just a bad actor. Like that could take them down, that it could eliminate them as an organization. So, and a lot of times they're pre-revenue, so they're not going to ever make that back. They're just the investors, or that they're paying for it out of their own pocket. It's a big, serious issue. So, you got to, focus on the implications that come with, not doing things the right way from the beginning. And not continuing to do it from the right, or not continuing to do things the right way. So, absolutely 1000%, a big process. So what can companies do? How can they come together? How can they, collaborate to improve, just their validation practice? Like, what can they do to improve everything?
Yeah, this was a big part of what I had to learn once I was no longer a corporate employee and was working on my own with Brayearst, because, okay, here's a shameful admission. So the day I separated from my employer, I had 22 LinkedIn connections. That is dismal.
Where are we at now?
Now you're posting Live, constantly
Yes.
talking to all sorts of people.
Yep. So what I see is that, this ecosystem just has all of these moving parts, and the way to collaborate is through the various organizations that are helping to knit us together. So yes, I have my BioBuzz pin on because I do see them,
I don't have a
as are the
BioBuzz
primary
pin.
actors in trying to build the ecosystem. And actually, in addition to them, I have a partner up in Boston with Courseworks, and he's helping me with kind of the online build of having a discussion forum to help, again, have people have a destination they can go to ask questions about validation. Because right now, I'm a member of several organizations, PDA, as I have my cup, PDA, ISPE, ASQ, and RAPS is in
Come
there.
to Maryland Tech Council
WIB,
stuff.
MTC. Yeah. So, but validation is not a focal point of any of them. And so every once in a while, I'll see on one of their message boards, someone asks a validation question, and it's kind of just sort of this one little drip, in a big pond. And so I'm hoping that what I will say so far, I'm naming Validation Haven. So far, we'll see if it sticks. I see that as a destination to bring your questions. Let's have these conversations because there's a lot of knowledge out there. And because validation isn't recognized as a profession, it doesn't have its own professional organization, it can be hard for us to collaborate on what's the right approach in a given situation. And, how are these companies supposed to react when the FDA comes out with something new? And also through Courseworks, I also work with them on webinars. So last year we did a process validation one. Next month we're going to do a computer systems one.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How can we help?
So I will warn you that of the 4 types of computer system validation, I'm only focusing on the ones that the new CSA guidance impacts. That's automation and quality systems. So it's not so much a focus on the software as a medical device and software in a medical device one, since those parts are not being touched by this new update. But yeah, so looking forward to that, seeing what kind of conversations come up.
So this is what you've been talking about with the platform to collaborate on.
Yep.
That you've been telling me about.
Yep, Courseworks.
So that is live or it's launching?
Launching. So John will probably see this video, so hopefully I'm not saying too much too soon.
Okay, so I'm not saying anything.
But he's working on, getting all of the technical aspects, getting it structured right, so that once it is fully live, we can go full on into it. So he's definitely promoting the webinar right now because we do have that on the calendar to do. But then the community aspect is the part that we're going to kind of branch into.
Okay. So to be continued for that, for how to access that and all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to talk about it on my LinkedIn. Absolutely. When it's totally live. I mean, I named it and everything. So I got to have people come in and talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Well, I'm looking at your LinkedIn. You said you had 22 people when you left your previous organization.
Yep.
Well, there's 100 pages of connections that you have right now. So I'd say you have a little bit more than 22. I know for a fact you have more than 22 because we have 47 mutual. So, I mean, that is quite the come up, quite the growth. I think it's a testament to how involved in the community that you are and how, the quality of work that you put in towards validation and towards any of the folks that you work with, the amount that you've seen grow on your LinkedIn and just generally speaking, running your own business is impressive. And so, yeah, I mean, keep killing it.
Thank you.
Like, keep going. I mean, I don't know if we have anything that we've worked together yet on, but
I hope so. I hope we can soon.
There are things that are coming with us that we'd like to probably partner on, new clients and things of that nature that we'd like to connect on and, see if we can get things rolling in the right direction for them from the start. So I really appreciate you bringing up that you like to do the training because that's going to be something that, we need to focus on as they move into their next stage, or our clients move into their next stage of wherever they're at.
Oh,
so,
wow.
very, very, very awesome. So anyways, we appreciate you hopping on, talking with us,
No
giving us
problem.
some insight about, the world of validation, process validation, and, educating me for sure. Alec, always learning. So yeah, we appreciate it. And yeah, where can people find you? I know you got your really active LinkedIn,
Yep.
website, anything like that?
Yes, I do have the website at Brayearst.com. And the easy way to get to my LinkedIn is founder.brayearst.com because I can't remember all of that LinkedIn/in/whatever stuff.
I think we can
and-
even drag it over. Let's see if this works.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. There we go.
Yeah. So, and pretty much with making up my own word with Brayearst, the benefit is that you Google it, you find me.
Right.
Unless
Find you first.
Yes, unless now I have to admit that the first time I Googled the word to make sure it didn't exist, the lovely algorithm was like, "Oh, are you looking for bratwurst?" I'm like, "No," although now I'm hungry. So you might still get bratwurst. So I apologize if anyone gets hunger pangs while looking for Brayearst.
No, we'll plug it in here so everyone can see it. I know Alex got it up on the screen, but
it's up on the screen right now.
well, I can't see it. But
Yeah, you can't see it, but we got the website here, right? It's a nice website. Yeah. What is your preferred method? Somebody just fill out your contact information, message you on LinkedIn, give you a call?
Yeah, it's been messaging on LinkedIn is how a lot of people get in touch. But I do have the contact form if it's late at night and you don't feel like starting your social media, because if you go in there, there's a bunch of messages waiting for you. You can just use the contact form and that'll get to me as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll continue to throw your name out there, especially to some of our clients that are moving into that manufacturing side of things, and even before then, we'll definitely do what we can to help you out, and hopefully we can get the same thing. And we're here to help you and make things easy for you later down the road. So whenever companies are ready to do validation, they're not especially on the software side, anything on the computer side as well. We're there to help out.
Yeah,
so
I definitely look forward to InfoPathways helping them to stay secure as well.
Yep, that's hopefully.
Yeah, because I mean, when it comes down to it, all of us service providers are trying to help these. Oh, I forgot to use my nickname. These medical marvel makers to get their product to patients.
Are you gonna do your lightning round? You always do your little lightning round.
I don't have a lightning round this time.
I've got
you got a lightning round?
I got a few.
All right, fire away, man.
Okay. Now, well, she was in the middle of something, but
sorry.
I know. I was just expressing appreciation to having others in this fight to get products to patients. Because who knows? One of us might need it one day. Loved one might need it one day. Not getting any younger. Got lots of gray.
I know.
Mine's coming.
I've been very grateful
every day, so I'm getting real gray soon.
because of some of the things I've had to go through in my life through the connections because of this. It's been very helpful. But okay, few questions I had come up real quick. Lightning round stuff. This is normally Desmond's thing. He's like all about this.
Oh man, you got it.
So all right, since we're talking about the comic stuff, who is your favorite superhero?
Storm.
Oh,
who is that?
Are you kidding me?
No way.
No, nope. Don't know.
Halle Berry.
Don't know.
Halle Berry, okay,
I know who Halle Berry is, but
X-Men.
Alexandra Shipp.
Huh?
Alexandra Shipp, when she played the character.
I don't know who that is.
She was the younger in Age of Apocalypse.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
What did they call the movie?
Is that the one with
Where Oscar Isaac played the Apocalypse character, but I can't remember what.
Is this Fantastic Four?
Oh my goodness, no!
X-Men.
That was Jessica Alba in Fantastic Four.
I'm a Marvel.
Halle Berry was also Catwoman.
True. That's what DC will do to
so
you.
So was Anne Hathaway. She was Catwoman.
She looks like a Catwoman. I don't know. Okay, so Storm. I'm hoping for reappearance of Holly Berry as Storm with the new Deadpool Wolverine thing kind of like going well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't do that.
No, but I'm wondering if there'll be some future stuff there.
True.
Second question.
Okay.
And I don't know if you don't have to answer this, but I was going to say, what's your favorite organization that you're a part of?
Oh.
But that's kind of because you don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I do have 2 represented here, though, so at least
Yeah, we know which 2.
We've got
Yeah.
unless the other ones want to give me a cup and a pin.
We can give you a cup or a hat, or I don't know. Ravenna's got all sorts of stuff. You want to wrap that? Like, we got stickers.
Saying I got a BioBuzz pen too. Let me just say.
Yeah, whatever.
I be repping them everywhere I can.
So, what I guess what organization that you've been a part of do you think has been that has kind of really allowed you to learn the most?
Ooh. Now, that answer has probably changed because it would come with the advisors I got along the way. So early on as an employee, had no idea about running a business. And so the Maryland Business Opportunity Center was my first point of contact of having an advisor assigned to me to think about actually running a business and setting that up. And don't use colors on your website that are hideous. Who knew? He hated my first website. He hated my first one. So, but then, so I worked with him early on, and then I got moved to SBDC. So once you get kind of the fundamentals set up with MBOC, they move you to SBDC. And then from there, I also worked with SCORE because of a pitch competition prep that I was doing. And then most recently, I gained an advisor through Maryland Tech Council. And what's nice there is, now the earlier advisors were helpful because I had to learn business fundamentals first. Now I'm at the point where, okay, I've been in the space for a couple of years now, and we've got some basic structure set up. What does it really need to look like to help life sciences? And that's where the Maryland Tech Council advisor can now help with specifically honing in on what are the things that will help in this ecosystem in particular. Because the earlier advisors, like I said, they were good for general business, but they're used to, business to consumer businesses. They're used to products, not services. They're definitely not used to weird technical things like validation. I mean, I had to spend more time explaining it. And then we could try and talk about, okay, what does a business have to do?
Yep.
And so my latest advisor, I think, is going to help me, with that next step.
Very cool. Yeah, we had Kelly on 2 months ago or something like that. And
that was our last episode, but we traveled a lot since that. You've traveled even more. We had the holidays. It's been a lot. Lots been going on.
But that's really awesome.
We're back.
I'm happy that so I miss it sometimes, and now that I'm down here in North Carolina, we have plenty of resources to do the same. But I do miss that in Maryland. The support you get is unbelievable. Obviously, InfoPathways, I don't have to start this business, but the support in Maryland is great, and I'm excited to see what you do next and moving forward with Brayearst. And like I said earlier, like hopefully we can connect and align and see if we can help each other out. And because at the end of the day, like you said, it's getting products into humans and finding solutions to problems and helping continue to improve health, generally speaking. So helping people out is definitely what we want to do, and hopefully we can do the same with you. And cool. I don't really have any other lightning round questions.
Okay. Last question for you. Where are you going to be next? Because I know we're going to just see it pop up on LinkedIn or something. But
Well, let's see. I was accepting things on my calendar. I know I've got a Chamber of Commerce thing I accepted this morning, and I'm going to be at Fort MLK. So I was at Maryland Innovation Center. Was it? Look, I can't even remember if it was yesterday, day before, sometime this week. It's so sad how the calendar flies. But during the presentation, that's right, that was for Equitech Tuesday for Upsurge. They were at MIC. They talked about having student spinoffs give pitches about their businesses, and they're going to be at Fort MLK. And unfortunately, I missed the ribbon cutting for Fort MLK, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. I took a tour when it was still under construction, but just seeing it finished, I'm like really looking forward to that.
Are you going to the Chesapeake Regional second annual event?
Ooh, I'll have to look at my.
It's next Thursday.
All right. Okay.
Thursday the 30th.
There's also a couple other events.
There's a pitch thing coming up too.
Opus 8's doing something as well. It's like a pitch competition. There's a lot of things going on. Alec will be up there doing all of those.
All right.
You got stuff too, right?
Oh yeah, I guess.
And North Carolina?
Or is it still kind of slow right now?
It's kind of slow right now.
Yeah, I think the next Baltimore regional is the Pitch and Pour, and that's going to be in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be a few weeks from now. So these organizations keep us busy.
Yes, they do.
But that's what we need them for, because for some reason people don't just randomly show up at my house so I can meet them. I mean, it's very inconvenient.
Are you wanting to put that info out there? Like, I wouldn't want to. Like, I don't.
Hey, if somebody wants to come to knock on my door and ask for IT help or consulting, listen, by all means, come on down.
Don't ask if you need that.
Do you need IT services? No. I think I know a couple people.
I've actually gotten people like email me stuff, and they're like, "Hey, do you need some help with your IT?" And I'd be like, and I just like when I get stuff like that, I probably shouldn't be this way. But when I get stuff like that, I'd be like, "Oh, are you talking about this? Do you need any assistance with that? Like, we could help you with that."
Oh,
like, don't be trying to sell me on the stuff we already do.
Makes sense. So, you should do some basic research. Yeah.
Just look, right? Like, look at the website. What do we
just look at
Manage IT services? Just look at it. Oh, goodness. Well, Stephanie,
look at this.
We appreciate your time. And we hope to see you down the road at some other events. And we look forward to it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.